Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ellie. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited for this video. I love these no spend week challenges. This is my second time doing this. My first time was last month for January, and now we're doing the February one, and I intend on doing this every single month for the rest of the year. What this means is that we will not be spending for a whole week on non-essential items, or we're going to try to not spend on non-essential items. So we do anticipate to spend throughout the week, but as long as we are spending on essential items, then it doesn't really count and we are fulfilling our challenge. I go really in depth in my last video as to what inspired this challenge and also the parameters more in depth, like sort of what they mean, but they're pretty straightforward. So I will go ahead and define those parameters again. So for us, only buying essential items means only buying groceries, only buying gas, and also household items. So by household items, I mean things that we absolutely need in the household. So like toilet paper, dish soap, things like that. And as long as we're buying those type of items throughout the week, then that is fine. It was so hard to pick a week this month because it's such an eventful month. There's Valentine's Day, there's a Super Bowl. We have a 3-month-old daughter and some family members haven't met her, so we were going to gather with family. And then we also have family visiting from out of the state and we want to take them out and about. So essentially every single week this month we had something going on that we knew was going to involve spending money. Last month we treated our week as Monday through Sunday. So the first day of no spend week was on a Monday and the last day of no spend week was on a Sunday. We thought it would be a little bit more bearable to split the weekend days apart. Last time we couldn't spend Saturday and Sunday like back to back. This month we decided on starting our no spend week on a Sunday and ending on a Saturday. So this was more bearable because that Saturday before no spend week, we can indulge a little. Like if we wanted to go out and get something, we could. As long as we're doing 7 consecutive days, then that is also okay. And now I want to talk to you about what my approach to this no spend week was. Last month, I went in with really wanting to come in with recipes and just pre-planned meals. I had a whole meal plan. This month, it just felt so much busier. Like we're just really trying to find our footing, like with our newborn. We've kind of just fluctuated with our routines. It just really put stress on me before starting no spend week. So the approach to this month's no spend week was not everything has to be a recipe. This month's no spend week was all about quick and simple meals. I do feel like this is just so useful, especially for busy weeks. And to be honest, it's just the most realistic approach for most of us. And with that being said, let's enter the journey of our no spend week together. Let's kick it off with Sunday, specifically Super Bowl Sunday. It was already a tough one to start on. I do want to say that we started off good for breakfast that Sunday. We had waffles, we had eggs and sausage, all made here at home. We didn't eat out, so we started off good. For lunch, because we did have a very late breakfast, we slept in a little bit. We ended up not really eating lunch, $0 for lunch. Then comes dinner. We went to Smart and Final, bought some things to bring back and enjoy the Super Bowl. So the dinner that he ended up bringing back wasn't even like that expensive. It was just pizza to like put it in the oven. And I wouldn't really say that's non-essential because we buy pizza to eat here at home all the time. But the non-essential items I would say were chips. Like he bought 3 different bags of chips, I believe. So do we really need chips? Not really a healthy snack. I would definitely say this is non-essential. And he also bought some neutral vodka seltzers, and that is definitely non-essential. So the total on the receipt for Smart and Final was $73.96. Out of all of that, a majority I would say was actually essential, with the exception of the chips and the neutrals. The alcoholic beverage cost $17.99. The chips were $3.99 each. So I will add that down below. That was Sunday, already not starting off strong, but I will say I'm not mad at it. I feel like if we went out, we definitely would have spent more than $73.96. Moving on to Monday. Monday was a hectic morning, meaning I didn't really have time to put together a nutritious breakfast. So for breakfast, I had pan dulce with some coffee. That was my meal, but it was still a meal at home, okay? So I didn't spend any money on breakfast. For lunch, I had some leftover pizza from the day before, from Super Bowl Sunday. So there you go, pizza came in clutch on the day after. This is another meal in which I didn't eat out. No money was spent on that. And then later that night, we meal prepped for the incoming days. So my husband made some breaded chicken and I also made some rice. So for dinner that night, we just ate some of what we had cooked. Monday, so far so good. We're already making up for Sunday. Alrighty, so let's head on to Tuesday. Tuesday was yet again just a chaotic morning. I usually just have oatmeal, but I think it's the fact that I just love sweetbread. I ended up having that again. I also made myself an instant coffee at home. So I would say we did good for breakfast. We spent $0. And then for lunch, since we had meal prepped the day before, I just went ahead and had that. It was chicken, the breaded chicken with rice. I sprinkled some teriyaki sauce and it was just so delicious. And then later on that day, I was feeling a little snacky, so I had some cookies. These honestly were so good. The butter pecan praline, we actually purchased these a couple weeks back from one of our neighbors. A little girl in our neighborhood was selling a bunch of snacks for her school and we ended up buying several. Anyway, this was something that we didn't spend on for this week. We had purchased these a while back. So snacks, another $0 spent. And later that evening, my husband got home and as soon as he gets home, he usually makes us coffees just so like we don't have them too late. And it's just like a little quality time that we spent together. So we ended up having coffee with pan dulce yet again. That was Tuesday's little evening snack. And also I want to make a note that this is Tuesday night, the night before Valentine's Day. So that night I sent my husband off to a donut shop that's actually very popular near us. It's called Donut Man in Glendora, because the next day on Wednesday for Valentine's Day, I wanted to visit some colleagues in the office. Last year we celebrated Galentine's Day together and I thought it would be cute to this year have them meet my baby girl and take some donuts because they love donuts. This was definitely a non-essential purchase. I have the receipt right here. The total for that was $39.96. This was a conscious decision. I was going to meet up with my colleagues regardless. They were going to meet my baby girl and I was gonna come into the office. I didn't want to come empty-handed. But anyway, that's that. So let's move on to dinner. For dinner, I ended up making some beans. Again, this week was about survival. No recipes, just survive. Dinner, $0 spent. All right, moving on to the fourth day of no spend week, which was Wednesday. Another busy morning. Look at these hot Cheeto fingers. Oh my goodness. So Wednesday morning was crazy, meaning I didn't have breakfast. I did not have breakfast, nothing, like zero time. For lunch, we continued having our meal prepped food. So I had my breaded chicken with rice and beans, and then I did add some of the teriyaki sauce to my chicken. And then at this point, I also made myself a coffee. And then came the night. We have this tradition of going to Blaze Pizza. We started this tradition years ago. We were in college because we were like, you know what? We're not gonna go to a fancy restaurant. We tried that. The lines were so long. When I'm hungry, I wanna eat ASAP. We ended up doing Blaze Pizza, and ever since, we just created our little tradition. I will go ahead and put here on the screen what dinner ended up costing us. On Thursday, we carried on the same energy of having quick breakfasts. I had a cereal that morning, and then I also made myself a coffee. For lunch, we still had some of the meal prep. So I went ahead and gobbled that up with teriyaki sauce, and I also had some leftover lemonade from our Blaze Pizza date. This day, I remember I was feeling particularly snacky. I was so hungry. That's just what breastfeeding does to you, to be honest. So I made a little snack. I made some toast with peanut butter and honey. And then I was still hungry. Like I felt like I needed to really satisfy a craving. So I went ahead and had some chips with Cholula and lime. After finishing my bowl of chips, I decided that I was still hungry, and I went through our pantry and I found some peach rings. This was part of the purchase that we made from the little girl in our neighborhood, but this was not purchased during no spend week. This was purchased weeks before, so it doesn't count for this week. My husband came home, made his magnificent, delicious latte. I drank that faster than I should have. And for dinner that night, we had finally run out of the chicken and rice and beans. So we had some tuna tostadas. I sprinkled a little bit of salt over them, and they were just delicious. Quick little meal for those extra challenging days. Let's move on to Friday. Friday morning, I did a little bit better this day. I actually had a normal breakfast. I ended up having some oatmeal with apples, and I made myself a coffee, of course. And then for lunch, I ended up having more of the tuna. And then for snack, I ended up having a peanut butter toast yet again with honey. I also drank some coconut water. That's pretty much my choice of drink these days. It has a lot of electrolytes, which I just need to be extra hydrated right now that I'm breastfeeding. And then my husband came home. He made us a coffee. So good, so yummy. That day there was actually a grocery run. My husband went to Aldi, so I have the receipt right here. He only spent $29.10. So for dinner that night, we ended up making some salmon teriyaki tacos. That Friday night, I was feeling snacky again, and I had some hot Cheetos with cheese. We are at the last day. Let's head on to Saturday. For breakfast, we had our typical weekend breakfast, which is some waffles with butter, some fluffy eggs, and some sausages. And we also had some morning coffee. For lunch, because we did have a later breakfast, we only ended up having like a little snack for lunch. I made some mango sticky rice. And then on this day, I also engaged in some hobbies that I want to talk about, because sometimes hobbies can cost money. And one of them is just fitness. This is the first time that I had worked out the whole week, so you can already tell I have been struggling with my fitness goals. But anyway, we do have a home gym, but I will say that if you do have a gym membership, I wouldn't really count that like as a non-essential expense. I definitely believe that working out, engaging in physical exercise is essential for your health. So if you do have a monthly gym membership, then that would definitely be an essential expense. Like, don't think you have to like skip out on your membership for a whole month or something. I also do scrapbooking. It's been a while since I've done it, but I finally had some time, and this didn't really cost me anything this week. The scrapbook that I have, it was a gift, and then the pictures, I did print those out, but typically that's very inexpensive to do. You do need to buy like scrapbooking materials, like markers, stickers, and things like that. But all of that was gifted to me, and I didn't spend on any scrapbooking materials. This no spend week, that hobby was another thing I engaged in that was $0. And another thing that I want to talk about is a temptation that I did have sometime this afternoon, because I almost spent money on a desk. I didn't though. The reason why is because I had listed my current desk on OfferUp, and it had been on there forever. And someone decided to purchase it this Saturday, which I was so happy about, but that also means that I needed to replace it. And I've been wanting a like standing desk. I almost bought one that same Saturday after my husband dropped off the desk we sold, but I said, no, I'm gonna wait till Sunday because this is my no spend week and I'm not gonna spend. But I just wanted to share that because I held off because of this no spend week. I really wanted to try, since I had already made other non-essential purchases. And now we head on to dinner. For dinner, we had pizza. We didn't want to cook, and we just had pizza in the freezer, so we popped that into the oven. And for snacks, I had more chips. And actually, we do have a final receipt here. Hold on. But everything in this was essential. Like, it was just actual groceries, no alcohol and nothing like that. So the total for this was $126.09. That was the last expense. It's time to talk about what we spent in total on essential and non-essential items. I did go ahead and create a sheet on Google Sheets to help me organize this information and be able to collect it all in one place as the months progress, so I can compare the months against each other. So I'm going to be referencing that here down below, and I will go ahead and put it up on the screen shortly. Let's talk about February. Let's talk about what I spent on essential items. So there were 3 separate grocery trips. One was $19.51, the other was $29.10, and the other was $126.09. So that was all on groceries. In addition to that, there was an expense for gas, which was $54.70. So the total of all of these essential items is $229.40. Let's move on to the non-essential items. There was the amount of $54.45, which was the Smart and Final trip. I just went ahead and added up the alcohol and the chips, which I considered non-essential. Then there was the donuts that we purchased for Valentine's Day. That was $39.96. Then we went out to Blaze Pizza for Valentine's Day, and the amount for that was $36.34. The total for all of the non-essential items was $130.75. And if you add up the essential and non-essential amounts, they total up to $360.15. I want to go ahead and take a quick look at January. I went again more in depth on this in my January no spend week video, so definitely watch that if you haven't already. But just to do a month-to-month comparison, let's take a look at it. For January on essential items, here we go. There was 4 different grocery trips. There was one for $88, one for $68, and one for $125, and the final one for $36.58. And then we did purchase a passport for my daughter, which we deemed as essential last month, so that's why I have it in the essential category, and that was $167. For non-essential, we had no non-essential items last month. Although all items were essential items, we did spend more. We spent $484.58. The difference in the amount spent between January and February was $124.43. So we did spend significantly less this month. However, we do see that there was that non-essential category that had several items, whereas last month we didn't spend anything on non-essential items. So we definitely spent more money last month on essential items, and as a whole, I thought another thing that would be useful was to look at how much we are spending on groceries for each no spend week. So if I only focus on the groceries columns for February, the total of those 3 grocery trips was $174.70, whereas last month there were 4 grocery trips, and those 4 amounts totaled up to $317.58. So just in groceries alone, this month of February, we spent $142.88 less than last month. There you have it. Even though we did not meet the challenge this month because we did spend on non-essential items, it's good to see that we still did spend way less. That was good. A win is a win. Now I want to have a reflection moment. I did this for last video, and I thought it was just so useful for me to think about what I learned, what the takeaways were, how I can improve. I sat down and I took several notes, which I will be referencing. For our reflection, I want to start off by talking about what worked for us. So something that we did last month for no spend week that we also did this month that really works for us is to buy things as we need them rather than bulk buying everything at the start of the week. As I mentioned in last video, this is just less pressure, there's less prep. Like, I don't necessarily have to run around the house and make sure we have all household items. I don't have to make sure that our gas tanks are filled up for our cars. I don't have to make sure that we have a meal plan in place. Rather than that stressful situation, it's just, you know, as we notice that we need it, we go ahead and buy it. So yeah, it does involve more grocery trips, but my husband and I have been able to coordinate in a way that just makes this a better option. And because you do have less pressure, I feel like it makes no spend week more approachable to anyone, because all you have to do is set the intention of this week we're doing a no spend week, we're only buying essential items, and that's all you need. You don't really need to have anything else in place, because you know that you can make those essential purchases throughout the week as you go. Another thing that really worked for us was something that I mentioned early on in the video, which is having this approach of not everything has to be a recipe. Honestly, sometimes it's just simply about survival. Sometimes you just need to use what you have, mix it up, and call it a meal. Having this approach of not everything has to be a recipe definitely encouraged me to still do no spend week, even on a week where we had very little groceries to work with and we had no meal plan whatsoever. Another thing that really worked for us is just having go-to easy meals and kind of like your kitchen staples. So for example, for us, that's typically tuna. So in order to make like a quick tuna snack or lunch or dinner, all you need is a tuna can, some corn, and mayo. Some of our other like go-to easy meals is just to cook rice and beans and then have a protein. Any protein, doesn't matter. Rice and beans goes with pretty much anything. Like it can be fish, chicken, beef. It can honestly be any protein. So again, this concept of having staples. Another thing that really worked for us is modifying our week perspective, or like how we view a week. So instead of viewing it like traditionally, like from Monday to Sunday, we decided to view it as any 7 consecutive days, because that's essentially what a week is, right? This allowed us for more flexibility because it was just a more adaptable system to our situation. Like if you have an eventful week, or if something happened you couldn't start on a Monday, then you can start on Tuesday or Wednesday or any day of the week and just follow it for 7 days after that. Now I want to talk about what could be better or how can we improve. The first thing is definitely to plan the no spend week ahead of time, like before the month starts. This will better help us identify what's the best week, because I will say that February just creeped up on us. Had we planned it ahead of time, we would have been able to structure our 7 days in a way that would have allowed us to not spend any money. Another thing that I identified that we can improve on is just budgeting for special occasion expenses. So essentially just already have money set aside for the special days, the special events, so it don't creep up on us and we don't have to potentially spend money that wasn't budgeted for. So I think taking that approach for the very special occasions like Valentine's Day, birthdays, that might be something that we will explore in the future. Another thing that I think could be better is if we redefine our parameters. I was reflecting on, for example, the January expense of buying our daughter's passport. Like that is so important, you know, like there's just going to be some things that have to be taken care of, like for example a medical bill, things like that. So I think moving forward I'm going to add another category to our parameters. So currently our parameters for essential items include groceries, gas, household items. I think to that I'm going to add miscellaneous essentials. I don't really know if this is going to be the official title, but that's what I can think of right now, and this is essentially going to be to encompass those things that I just mentioned, the things that you can't really foresee or fully define or even think of at this moment, but you know that if you get that bill, you're going to pay it. So again, if you go to the doctor, you have to pay a co-payment. There are just certain things, like maybe more bureaucratic or government things or taxes or bills, like certain things are just gonna have to be paid sometimes in moments that you may not anticipate. So I think adding this miscellaneous essentials category to our parameters kind of covers those bases. Moving on to another thing that could be better is that I definitely can be eating healthier snacks or dessert. As you saw in this video, video, I was not eating very healthy. It was just sort of like, what do we have in our pantry? Most of it was not healthy. I mentioned in my previous video, in my January video, that I do want to get better at desserts in the future, incorporating more of that, like more health around the snacks and desserts that I'm eating. And lastly, a thing that we can improve on, or that could be better, is looking at our pantry thoroughly before we go grocery shopping. I swear this happens every time, but my husband came back with items that we already had in our pantry, and that was my bad. Like, I had put things on the grocery list that we already had. It'll still be used up, but our grocery bills for this week could have been cheaper had I just gone through the pantry more thoroughly. Those are a couple of things that, upon reflecting, I thought could be better or we could improve on. I'm going to be closing out the video here. I'm recording off of my phone because, of course, my battery died, and then when I reinserted a new battery, something was wrong with my SD card. This happens often, actually. But anyway, I really hope that you're enjoying these videos so far if you've been watching them. I have been enjoying this experience so far. I really feel like I am just gaining so much more extra awareness around my spending, because I kid you not, like, just the fact that we're spending a whole week per month of just being intentional, it has already started leaking into other areas of our financial life. And ever since doing this, we're just more conscious of what we're spending, even outside of no spend week. Like, throughout the month, we're really trying to stick to our budgets. We really are having more discussions around our spending even, so that's been amazing. It's just been nice to have a more decision making before we make any expenses, rather than it being like a passive situation that we oftentimes find ourselves in. I am really excited to see how this keeps evolving. Let me know if you liked this video. Please like the video if you did like it. Go ahead and subscribe, because if you like this content, you will most likely like other videos that I post on this channel. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.